again, I thought we were done with Marianne Williamson, and I was never able to get to this clip where I wanted to, because this is where Kyle and Crystal, the two main supporters, main pushers of Marianne Williamson, had to come out and say, make a comment about her dropping out of the race. So we're going to cover that and then get to the actual announcement video. But just to read the headline from the Hill, just in, author Marianne Williamson announced that she is unsuspending her presidential campaign, claiming American voters are watching a car crash in slow motion with the current candidates. Maybe she got back in because of Cornel West imploding. Maybe that's it. We'll listen to her announcement video in just a second. I do want to start with this video. It's about 7 minutes long, with Beyonce and Jay-Z, also, or better known as Kyle and Crystal Kalinsky.
Campaign over.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Big news. Marianne Williamson. Campaign over.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
Officially suspended. I mean, I just have to say, like, I have nothing for love for Marianne as a human being, for the courage that she showed at a time when no one else was willing to step out, at the incoming that she has taken. So, I mean, listen, I can nitpick about this or that, or, issues that I would have approached. I think she deserves all of the respect and admiration. I can nitpick
about stuff like Palestine, but who cares?
Being willing to take this on. I think she has exposed what an anti-democratic shambles the Democratic Party is. I mean,
she exposed that because we have video of us and many people telling her that's exactly what was going on. But we want to attribute the the expose of the Democrats to Marianne Williamson. That is quite laughable.
I mean, it's just from the jump, collaborating with their media organs, making sure she didn't get a good fair hearing, that people had no idea she was even running, that, there were states where they just decided we're just not even going to have a primary. We're just going to anoint Joe Biden. So Florida. Kudos to her for putting herself out there and doing everything she possibly could to give Democratic voters and the American people a choice, especially, Kyle, at a time when how many videos are we seeing on like a daily basis now of Joe Biden completely unable to formulate a basic thought, or telling stories about foreign leaders that died decades ago, thinking that they're still alive and well, or not able to even find the word Hamas in order to explain his response on a potential ceasefire. It's just, when you look at this, you're like, what the hell are we doing? And so, just absolute kudos to her at this point for having had the courage to at least give it a shot.
So just a few things to point out real quick.
Yeah.
She and her campaign were blocked from getting voter data in various states after already paying for it.
That's right.
And then they refused to give any sort of refund after the fact. She was blocked from talking to various college Democrat groups in various states. As you alluded to, there were 4 so far Democratic primaries where they canceled it up front. In one instance in Florida, everybody went. It was Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, Cenk Uygur went to go sign up on a certain day, and they go, "Oh, sorry, the date passed." They're like, "What are you talking about? The date is in like a week from now."
Right.
And they're like, "No, but we changed it without telling anybody."
Right.
And so now you can't get on the ballots. These are very, very anti-democratic moves. There's a lot to criticize there. But beyond that, the biggest factor to me, and I think there's legitimate criticisms of her and her campaign. There's certainly things you could point out, like, hey, you could have done this better or that better. But to me, the biggest factor was, I always say this about the media. The difference between the media loving you and hating you, it's a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal. Because as long as you're getting some noise around your campaign, it can spark a backlash effect where people start to love you, even if the media is shitting on you 24/7.
Yeah.
In the case of Marianne, what I feared the most is what happened, which is total indifference.
What do you fear the
wall
most?
of indifference. They pretend like you don't exist. And in a scenario like that, it's pretty much impossible to break through.
That's right.
So after watching this campaign, my takeaway from it, and I've said this on my show as well, is that I fear that in order for a lefty to actually win, it needs to be either somebody who's super undeniable, like Bernie Sanders, who was a senator for 312 years before he ran.
He didn't
because
win.
It's like, he's a senator. What are you going to do? He's just serious in the political game, whether or not you want to acknowledge it. I think they could even disregard and disrespect Congress people. That's what happened with Dean Phillips. They're like, you're a peon. You're nobody. Get out of here. You would either need a senator or you would need an A-list celebrity, maybe a B-list celebrity you can get away with, in order to break through. So if somebody like Jon Stewart ran, the media wouldn't be able to keep the cameras off of Jon Stewart because he's super entertaining. He already has that gravitas and charisma about him.
Right.
And so that would be undeniable. But after watching this unfold, that really is my ultimate conclusion, is that they are always going to disrespect the left. They're always going to swap the left aside, act like you're unserious, act like your candidates are ridiculous, pay you no mind whatsoever. I think they actually learned the lesson of Bernie.
They're going to, now you heard what he says, they're going to always do that. So why are you going to run and support another candidate in 2028, in 2032? Why are you going to do that when you are acknowledging and admitting this particular point that he does here? Now, I might come back to this to finish out at the 4-minute mark here. I got to remember that I'm at the 4-minute mark. But let's now go to the announcement of her book tour resuming. Isn't that what this is? Maybe she couldn't parlay this into a book deal. So they say, hey, you wasn't even in the race long enough, ma'am. So she re-entered. But I think it could be a combination of that and definitely what she's seeing happen to Cornel West. Let's listen.
Hey, I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race, but something so much more important than the horse race is at stake here, and we must respond. Right now, we have a fascist standing at the door. Everybody's all upset about it. Well, we should be upset about it, but we're not going to defeat the fascist by what? What is President Biden offering? He says, let's finish the job. Well, I hope you realize we're talking about millions of voters for whom they can't even survive unless they work at 2 or 3 jobs. What is he saying beyond, the economy is really doing well? Are you kidding me? For whom? It's doing well for 20% of us, and that's to be celebrated. But that 20% is on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 39% of the American people report that they are regularly skipping meals in order to pay their rent. Over half of bankruptcies come from medical debt, 1 in 4 Americans carry. We're now living at a time where economic anxiety is experienced by the majority of people living paycheck to paycheck, the minimum wage not having been raised, and increasing militarism. What's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. We, the people, basically don't own this country right now. Abraham Lincoln said that people who died in the Civil War for the Union had died so that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people would not perish from the earth. It's perishing now and on our watch. We're a government for all intents and purposes of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations. And we need a president who says this. And we need a president who lays down an agenda and says, we're going to turn this thing around. We're going to take an economic U-turn. Who inspires the American people? We can do different. We can do better. That's what it is to make this country great again. To return it to a time when we actually had a thriving.
Make this country great again.
And you don't do that with Donald Trump's policies. You do that with Medicare for all. You do it with tuition-free college and tech school. You do it with using the Higher Education Act, the entire college loan debt. You do it with paid family leave and subsidized childcare. You do it with guaranteed housing, guaranteed living wage, guaranteed sick pay. We change this world. We make it more beautiful. We have to respond to Donald Trump's dark vision of possibility. We need to have a peace academy as well as a military academy. We have to have armies of peace builders as well as armies of military personnel. We need to play peace games, not just war games. We need to learn to wage peace. And we need to end America's war on drugs. We need to have a ceasefire now. We need to have reparations. We need to have policies that actually expand opportunities and thus expand the economy and expand the possibilities for the future for our children and our children's children. We need to ramp down, not keep ramping up fossil fuel extraction. We need to take this country in a direction of hope and possibility and regeneration. That is the vision that will defeat Donald Trump, not let us finish the job. We're watching a car crash in slow motion here. Everybody knows it. Some people would say, oh, Ms. Williamson, you're delusional. I'll tell you what's delusional. What's delusional is just closing our eyes and crossing our fingers and just hoping that somehow Biden and Harris will be able to beat that juggernaut of dark, dark vision. No, we're going to defeat that juggernaut by lifting people up, lifting ourselves up to a realization that new beginnings are what America specializes in. It's what we were born from. We need to remember what our ancestors have done when they were challenged. We've done great things in this country. We're hardwired to do great things, and we have to do them now. I hope you go to Marianne2024.com, read our policies. We're still in this. Let's do this. This is serious. This is serious. We need to say to the American people, we see your pain, and we need to say to Donald Trump, we see your BS. Let's do this. Thanks so much. Spread the word.
So Joe Biden is right now committing a genocide. Joe Biden just had uncommitted come out with 1,000 uncommitted votes. Joe Biden is doing the best that he can to end asylum. Joe Biden is doing his best Trump impression, trying to instill restrictive immigration executive orders. But Marianne Williamson comes out to talk about Donald Trump is the reason she's getting back in. That sounds serious. Let's replay it again. I wanted to play it all the way through before I go through and give my take. So let's listen again.
Hey, I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race, but something so
I suspended it because I was losing the horse race. So let me unsuspend so I can continue to lose the horse race.
so much more important than the horse race is at stake here, and we must respond. Right now, we have a fascist standing.
There's more than there's more things more important than the horse race. So let me get in the horse race. That's what she said. I got out of this because I was losing the horse race. So I'm getting back into the horse race because there's more important things than the horse race.
Standing at the door. Everybody's all upset about it. Well, we should be upset about it, but we're not going to defeat the fascist.
It's so awkward. I must say, isn't this awkward to do a video like this the entire time? What is this supposed to mean? Are you semi-upset about rejoining the horse race here?
By what? What is President Biden offering? He says, let's finish the job. Well, I hope you realize we're talking about millions of voters for whom they can't even survive unless they work at 2 or 3 jobs. What is he saying beyond, the economy is really doing well? Are you kidding me? For whom? It's doing well for 20% of us, and that's to be celebrated. But that 20% is on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic.
That's these phrases that she makes up, vast sea of economic, those are the killers for me. It's like a person who is terrible at write raps. It's terrible. This person is terrible at being relatable, and she tries to come up with these things that make her more relatable, which they don't. let's continue a little more of this.
Economic despair. 39% of the American people report that they are regularly skipping meals in order to pay their rent. Over half of bankruptcies come from medical debt. 1 in 4 Americans.
What's different? What has changed? All of what you're listing, Marianne Williamson, existed at the time when you suspended your campaign. Everything you're listing.
Terry, we're now living at a time where economic anxiety is experienced by the majority of people living paycheck to paycheck, the minimum wage not having been raised, and increasing militarism. What's going on here? Well,
it's weird how Marianne Williamson talks about militarism being a problem as she supports Ukraine war and she supports funding Israel. That's just weird to talk about a Department of Peace as you support sending money to Ukraine and Nazis.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. We, the people, basically don't own this country right now. Abraham Lincoln said that people who died in the Civil War for the Union had died so that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
She's always going to be doing this. I've said this many times. When she tells stories, she talks about FDR. She talks about Lincoln. Lincoln said this. FDR said that. She does a lot of interjecting fantasy patriotic stories of our terrible ancestors, our terrible forefathers, I should say, not ancestors, terrible forefathers.
People would not perish from the earth. It's perishing now and on our watch. We're a government for all intents and purposes of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations. And we need a president who says this. And we need a president who lays down an agenda and says, we're going to turn this thing around. We're going to take an economic U-turn. Who inspires the American people? We can do different. We can do better. That's what it is to make this country great again. To return.
What does it mean that you're using a MAGA? What does it mean that you're using MAGA in your announcement speech? That's just weird to me, but I think I'm done with her speaking. Let's go to the article for the rest of this here. So we'll go to the article for a little bit more details on this joke of a campaign coming back. Williamson unsuspending presidential campaign. This is from The Hill. And let's make this a little bit smaller here. And we can get rid of this video. All right, so let's read a little bit. Maybe it's a short article. Maybe I'll read all of it. Let's see. All right, so author Marianne Williamson announced Wednesday that she is unsuspending her presidential campaign, claiming American voters are watching a car crash in slow motion with the current candidates. I don't need to read her quote. We saw it on the screen. The long shot Biden challenger announced she was unsuspending her campaign in a video 3 weeks ago. She was suspending her campaign. I said unsuspending. She announced she was suspending her campaign 3 weeks ago. She acknowledged in Wednesday's video, that's today, that she dropped out because, quote, I was losing the horse race. But something so much more important than a horse race is at stake here, and we must respond. Williamson's announcement came just after the Michigan primary election results, where former Trump and President Biden easily won their respective primaries, but not without signs of some voters from both parties are unhappy about their likely nominee. In her video, the author called Trump a fascist who must be defeated. She also questioned Biden and his economic agenda. Williamson, a writer and progressive Democrat, ran to the left of Biden and hoped to appeal to voters who are not satisfied with establishment party politics. Critics have said her bid is not sophisticated enough to present a real threat to the Biden campaign, which has the support of the Democratic committee. She faced issues in her campaign before, experiencing staff issues. Now, I want to pause it right here because this is a great point. I never heard it described that way, but that actually is a good description. Critics have said her bid is not sophisticated enough to present a real threat to Biden. It's unserious. She argued Wednesday that, quote, we need a president, end quote, who will eliminate student loan debt, provide Medicare for all, tuition-free college, paid family leave, and guaranteed wages, among other initiatives. You know what social democrats, they love to be the furthest left on domestic policies like these. But do you understand, in order to get these domestic policies, there has to be a change in foreign policy. Where is this money for these things going to come from, if not the 900 on the books, what's on the books for the military and complex, over 1 trillion, what's not on the books? How are you going to get these things if you don't stop those things? This is what social democrats don't understand when they fall in line with the establishment narratives about war and militarism. You can fall in line with that, but how are you going to achieve these domestic priorities that you have if you do not drastically cut back on the military industrial complex? The $1 trillion literally spent on the military industrial complex could fix the tuition, could fix family paid leave, could fix a Medicare for all, could completely fix homelessness. They're connected, in other words. Continuing with the article, Williamson also highlighted the economic issues facing many Americans in her comeback message. A majority of Americans experience economic anxiety, and she argued that returning the country to a time when we actually had thriving middle class is what it means to be an American great again, to make America great again. It's just weird that she's using the same mantra as Trump to say, make America great again. But Marianne Williamson unsuspending her presidential campaign. That is the headline.